Bam Pow Comic Hour with your hosts, Andrew Glonner
and Chris Ramos.
And tonight we are reviewing.
Sorry.
You're good. Tonight we are covering Sam Wilson, Captain America, the Complete Collection, Volume 1. And this is to celebrate the upcoming Captain America Brave New World movie. So this is the first Captain America full-length movie since, I think, Winter Soldier.
Yeah,
Feels
like a
like
solo
it.
sort of like focused on him. Yes,
absolutely. Besides, they did like a TV series around 2021 where it was Winter Soldier, aka Bucky, and Falcon kind of doing their own like adventures and trying to figure out like what did the world look like after Captain America is no longer in the Marvel universe.
Yes.
What is his legacy?
And at that time, Sam Wilson was kind of showing, I think, his ability to hold a movie on his own. I mean, I felt like that was sort of a test. Like, did people like the series?
Right.
Did they like him?
Yeah.
Captain America.
Yeah, Anthony Mackie.
Yes.
And he's still in that role. And
I know.
I looked it up. I think he's been, let's see. So he has been in, Winter Soldier was 2014. And he has been in movies ever since then. And now it's 2025. Wow. So he's been the Falcon and now the new Captain America for 11 years. That's huge.
Wow. Yeah, actually, yeah, that's kind of.
If you think about
2014 was like, wow,
yeah, because that was what? Yeah, Winter Soldier, Age of Ultron, Ant-Man, Captain America: Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame, the TV series, and then the next movie. That's almost 8 roles. So that's pretty impressive.
Hey, he's devoted to the character, which is great to see that. And I don't know, I think the movie will be maybe refreshing. We'll see. We're gonna go see it opening weekend and figure it out.
Exactly. And we haven't had a new Marvel movie since Deadpool, and Deadpool is kind of off on its own. So like a main MCU movie
that's following the real timeline of
right.
Like picking up from that spot.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting and everybody's really anticipated. We won't really go too much into Red Hulk during this podcast, but we might bring it up occasionally in here. But in the comics, they don't really cross paths that often. So that was kind of an interesting twist on this story that the writers of Brave New World are going to bring to the show or bring to the movie. So that'll be really interesting to dive in when we see that.
But he's not like the villain of the movie.
No, we don't really know what actually direction. He's the catalyst. Yeah. I agree. Yeah, he'll help move the plot along. That's for sure. But I did want to take a moment to just kind of celebrate and take that anniversary moment. We just celebrate 4 years of Bam Pow Comic Hour. That's awesome. This is our 73rd episode as we're listening to the show. So thank you all listeners out there on the internet for listening to the show. This started out as a college radio show back in the day before even this inception was created, and I was kind of rambling. And then all of a sudden, Chris and I, we found ourselves in different opportunities in life. We're like, hey, let's sit down and record a podcast. And our audio tech RJ joined us as well, and we've been doing this ever since. So it's really cool that
4 years,
solid 4 years,
Excelsior.
Right? Yeah, so that's really awesome, and I just want to take that moment to celebrate it. Now, on to our main event. So, who is before we go dive into the actual series, I did want to take another moment as we segue to talk about who is Sam Wilson. When did he start? When his first appearance was? And he's been around for quite a while.
Longer than 14 years.
Longer than 14 years.
In the comics.
Yes. Sam Wilson, aka the Falcon, was created by Stan Lee, of course, with art by Gene Colan in Captain America issue 117 in 1969. So way back in the day, and really cool just to think about that and kind of what he stood for as being the second black superhero after the Black Panther in the Marvel Comics. And so this was actually like really groundbreaking at the time. And it was almost on the part of Gene Colan to like, hey, pitch this idea to Stan that this is really, this is a prominent idea that we should take on, and Stan Lee was excited to jump on that idea and start to flesh out this character to
Well,
pair
and he
up with
wasn't always
Cap.
started as a sidekick to Captain America.
Sure.
I think he was like his own character, but he was sharing those comics, which is what they used to do. Is when they introduced a new character, they would share it in a mainstream comic, so to speak, so that it would get some eyeballs looking at, when you just make a new character and they get their own comic, sometimes it's just an instant dive,
Yeah. And a quote from Gene Colan recalled in 2008 that in the late 60s, Vietnam War and civil rights protests were regular occurrences, and Stan, always wanting to be at the forefront of things, started bringing these headlines into the comics. One of the biggest steps we took in this direction came in Captain America. I enjoyed drawing people of every kind. I drew as many different types of people, and I could go into the scenes I illustrated, and I love drawing Black people. I also found their features interesting and so much strength, spirit, and wisdom written on their faces. I approached Stan, as I remember, with the idea of introducing an African-American hero, and he took it right away. I looked at several African-American magazines and used them as a basis of inspiration for bringing the Falcon to life.
Nice.
So it's really awesome to see then come full circle. We get to this comic book series that took place around, what was it, 2015?
Well, the front of this says 2020, but I think that's when this was This was when it was collected, I think.
So December of 2014 is when he starts as Captain America. So just think about all the progress and character development Sam Wilson, the character, has went through in 50 years, 60 years. That's an awesome thing to say that, these writers accomplished that. And
and that he's been accepted. I mean, most of the characters in this comic, especially this completed collected edition, I mean, he's right there next to Hulk and Thor. And everyone is like sort of this top tier legacy characters, and then there's Falcon right there. So it's like, well, that's kind of neat. He's kind of
earned his due,
he's earned his shoulder to shoulder to Thor.
Yeah. And so that was really awesome to see. And now just to kind of go into like what inspired this movie that's coming out. And as we're diving into this collected edition, the issue his first appearance is in Captain America number 25 as the Captain America, as Sam Wilson Captain America in the new costume. Officially. And it was written by Rick Remender with pencils by Carlos Pacheco with Stuart Eminem. And they really did the first run of like, what does this character look like, and putting those designs together. There's actually, even in the back of this collection, there's some like sketches of Sam Wilson's new costume as Captain America. And it's actually really cool, like how they came up with that idea. Yeah. So
I think his costume design, not to like jump into that, but like, it has a little bit of Captain America in it, but then it has like these really tight angles to follow what Falcon used to have.
Sure.
So he's got like the V on the front a little bit, and then they kind of work that in a little bit to where the star meets on his chest. So it's like they're trying to say, okay, you're still Falcon, but you're a Captain America, and we're going to make the costume look a little more like Captain America because it has the red and white ribbing on his lower chest there.
Yeah.
And I mean, they kind of had it separated where he's got the belt and the pants, like Captain America used to have.
Yeah.
And a lot of people even forget that Captain America's original costume was chainmail at the top and then jeans as his pants.
Oh yeah. Going back to like Golden Age.
Yeah. Like that's what it was first. So for them to split this, it looks like it's sort of that, regular spandex on top and then almost like a jean at the bottom, but it's not so, definitive that way.
Yeah. Because the pants do look a little more casual.
Yeah. They're not like bell bottoms or anything
like that.
But it is a definite split at the belt line, which is again kind of cool to at least give him a tiny bit of a little shout out to Captain America.
Sure. Yeah. And I still appreciate that his wings are still with the costume, as we've seen, because that's part of his identity and that's his origins as well. He also, Sam Wilson, in case people are jumping into this for the first time, Sam Wilson's power, his superpower is not super strength. It's not
No.
super speed. He has the ability, and he can't naturally fly. He kind of has like
I mean, he's a tough guy.
yeah, his
like,
wings
so
help him fly. That I think they're vibranium wings, if I'm not mistaken.
they are now.
Yeah.
And then he's got a little bit of a jetpack idea.
Yeah.
To kind of help him.
Yeah. Propulsion.
Yes. Yeah, a little of that on the back.
Yeah. But his superpower is that he has the ability to talk. He can communicate with birds.
He's like psychic with birds.
Yeah, telekinetic with birds and has like some empathy with them, so he can help. Like, hey, go. Red Wing is his like familiar that is with him throughout these stories, and he can say, "Hey, Red Wing, go about 30 yards and see what you see," and then he'll relay information to Sam Wilson's like head, so he'll know like what's coming up and things like that.
And you'll remember in the movie they had that as like a separate drone he could sort of shoot out of his jetpack.
Right, because they didn't give him a real bird.
Yeah, they gave him a real bird.
Yeah, we didn't get that in the movies.
That
is a good point.
Metallic drone would shoot out, and he'd kind of see that through his goggles.
Right.
And that was like
that is a weird point to bring up that they never gave him the actual power. No. They just gave him a robot.
Like, you can, and then
that's too wild.
Eh? Yeah, and then it kind of came back and went into his backpack again or whatever. And they don't really use it a lot, you know. And I don't know. In the movie, I felt like it could have really helped a lot of times.
Birds were too out there, man.
The other thing too I noticed in the comic is that he almost has his wings up like all the time.
Sure.
Like his wings are always out. They're always connected to his arms, even when he's just sort of casually walking around. And in the movie, they like flip away like lightning fast, like within a gunshot. They're like out wings, in wings, you know. Mm-hmm. And I wonder in the comics if they just kind of helped make him more of a character of like, don't confuse him with anyone else. It's like he's got wings all the time.
Sure, that totally makes sense.
I guess if they're vibranium, then it's like, what does he have to put him away for?
Interesting, but those are some great distinctions between what you see in the movie adaptation and the comics. Because each writer, no matter if you're working on a comic or a script for a movie, everybody has their own idea and their own interpretation and modernizing these ideas, and it's interesting. And so the reason why Sam Wilson took over, as you kind of seen in Avengers Endgame, Steve Rogers loses his super soldier serum that he got way back in the gold age when his origins. After his mission in Dimension Z. Yeah, I want to say that, or it was around that time period.
Like right when he was going into Dimension Z.
Yeah, could have been
right before that.
Yeah, it's around that time period, that storyline. And so what happens when, Captain America, icon of the Marvel comics, loses his immortality, or not immortality, his super soldier serum that makes him strong and gives him long lasting life, and
kind of slows his aging.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Now he looks like he's like 80.
Well, I just want to read the beginning of this because I thought this was hilarious, because this is like the truest comic synopsis. So like sometimes when you start a new run, is like, all right, where does this trade paperback or where does this collected edition fall within the comic run? So so this is like why I think some people's heads spin with comics. So it says previously, so you're like, oh, let me get caught up. Arnim Zola kidnapped Captain America to Dimension Z. Cap escaped his fortress, taking Zola's infant child Ian with him, and spent the next 12 years trapped in Dimension Z raising Ian. Eventually, Cap allied with Zola's daughter Jet Black and returned to Earth, but the evil Iron Nail neutralized Cap's super soldier serum, causing him to age rapidly. Zola invaded Earth, and Falcon and Jet Black freed Sharon Carter from his fortress. Falcon discovered that Zola's attack was a distraction from a powerful bomb, and he flew the bomb into the air just as it detonated. It's just like, that's a lot to put into 4 sentences. It's like
oh, okay. Like, yeah, sure. We totally get that. Yeah, we know how all those people are.
It's like, oh, I'm all caught up now. Like,
cow,
I
mean, at least they put something there.
Yeah, that's true. Instead of
just, like, you might have to like YouTube like what those sentences mean.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was just like, okay, Now you're primed. Here's the story.
I mean, at least they did that, and I guess us as the audience have some grounding of when this takes place, what we left off on, and people, if they're interested in how we got here, they can go back. So, yeah, and how we're kind of kicked off to like Carlos Pacheco's art, Armazola. For those who don't know, Captain America's Rogues Gallery. He's kind of like a giant robot with his head in his stomach.
Yeah, Zola used to be one of the Nazi guys, and
yeah,
he just found. Well, he was in the movie too.
Yeah,
but he found a way to live through technology.
Right.
But in the comics, he's more of like a walking robot guy.
Yeah. Still evil. Still
very evil.
Still very evil. Doesn't look very menacing, but he's still pretty evil. And one of the longest running Captain America villains. So that was really interesting to see him come out of like Dimension Z, and I was like trying to make reprimands. Tell Jet Black, I think this is who it is. It's like, hey, are you sure you do want to stay? Do you want to go? And at the end of the day, she's like, no, I'm going back. Bye. And that's all we see of Jet Black.
Wrapped up.
Yep. Yeah, and so we kind of see, what does it look like, Captain America coming back as, an older man and trying to tell the Avengers, hey, we have to transition this role over. We need somebody who's capable of doing the role.
I love when they collect all the Avengers around the table.
Right.
Like it's so iconic too. It's like, all right, we're going to have like 40 people on this page.
Yeah. And it kind of, the roster kind of reminds me of what was going on with Jonathan Hickman's Avengers run too.
Oh yeah.
Some of those characters.
A lot of really newer Avengers,
Mm-hmm. Well, that's one of another like prominent Avengers runs with Jonathan Hickman's. We won't go into that much, but that's kind of like the roster that's built out here. And everybody's kind of talking around the table of like, oh, this will be awkward. Okay. Trying to diffuse it. Like, what's news in the room? Who's going to take over as Captain America? And this is also after Bucky or the Winter Soldier had a stint as Captain America. So everybody's going back and forth. Who's it going to be? And then all of a sudden Sam Wilson's coming out. And you guys said, you guys all knew it was me, didn't you? There's literally no drama left in the review. Yeah.
It was like, like me, right, guys? Right?
Yeah. So it was really nice to see him take over, and he does the at the end of the issue, he goes, "Let's give it a whirl, Avengers assemble."
And he's got Cap's shield, which again,
that's kind of like the rite of passage.
Yeah, and like in Marvel comics, that is the ultimate. It's almost like Superman's crest on his chest. It's like Cap's shield is becoming synopsis for like all of Marvel. It's like that's what you see, and that's the ultimate symbol.
Sure. And then we go on to kind of go through a who's who of like Captain America's villains. That's what I think this was a really good comic to like show off his rogues gallery, because maybe not a lot of people remember them because they've have so much history in the comics.
Really a primer to say.
A primer.
Well, and like I think it was also, okay, there's a new Captain America. His villains find out, hey, there's a new Captain America. What do we do with the old Captain America? And they're almost like, just leave him alone, I guess.
Yeah.
And so they just automatically transfer all of their hate into like the new Captain America.
For real.
Well, what are we going to do? We're going to just, still want to be villains. So
yeah, exactly. And I think that's a smart play on Rick Remender's part of just like, how can we transition this along and have some flow with continuity?
Well, it reminds me too of like the Superior Spider-Man, where Doc Ock, took Spider-Man's body and he fought the villains in different ways.
Right.
This was like, how is Sam Wilson going to respond to these same villains? Because Cap always had like a way to do it.
Yeah. So yeah, we get kind of reintroduced to Hydra. Hydra, as we've seen for the movies, is kind of another very evil force, similar to like the Nazis and things like that. And still evil, still planning. When you chop one's head off, the other one comes.
Hydra's still alive.
There's two more come in place.
Hydra's lived longer than Sam Wilson.
Yeah, for real. And so they're really planning it out. And we kind of figure out like, hey, they're still plotting, and we're going to get reintroduced to them. And then we go on. I'm not super crazy about the next arc, which was the Fear Him arc.
Yeah, me either. I mean,
Scarecrow is kind of, it's similar to this Batman Scarecrow.
He deals in fear.
Yeah. I will say he looks more like the Vulture at some points, except with the mask on.
Lots of greens.
But he still uses a very similar power set that Scarecrow from Batman uses, almost too much in some ways.
Yeah, and I mean, I get the idea that there has to be certain villains to take over some of these.
Yeah, this more looked like I was like a testing.
Yeah, some of these like skill sets, but like fear, to me, fear has to be backed up with something. It's like he has to do something that's fearful. You know,
sure,
he can't just go up and be like, now you're afraid of stuff. And,
yeah,
and that storyline needs a lot more finessing, and I guess for his first adventure out as Captain America, I don't know if I would have picked that either.
Sure.
I mean, kept him real ground level.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, it kept him ground level, sticking to his roots as Sam Wilson. Also, he is known to be from Harlem, and he has some of those historic working the streets roots. And there's also, I think, Scarecrow has the ability to like control birds of some sort, or at least some robotics to it.
Yeah, he had like
some power to influence
ravens
people.
and crows.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So he's almost trying there. I think he was built to be like a foil to Sam Wilson as well when he was the Falcon. And also we get introduced to Ian Rogers, who is a whole nother conundrum, but in a nutshell, back in this whole Dimension Z thing,
he's the boy.
He is the illegitimate son of Captain America. Basically, they took some of Steve Rogers' DNA, put him in a test tube, grew him, and grew him into this character.
And that was like the baby that Captain America spent 12 years raising in Dimension Z.
Yeah. And it's a little out there, but I think he actually does really good in these first arcs as being something that really helps elevate Sam. And he is dressed as Nomad. That's his like a code name. And Nomad is another alias for Captain America. So really paying homage to those years as well.
So way back in the day, when Nomad #1 came out,
okay,
in the 90s, it was Bucky, and I got that comic because I went into a comic book shop and the artist was sitting there.
Oh, cool!
And I was like, "Oh, who are you?" And he goes, "Well, I worked on this comic."
Yeah.
And he signed the cover.
Wow!
And that was Nomad #1 with Bucky, and I don't think it really went anywhere as a series. I don't really think it picked up either as a thing. And then I kept it for a long time because it was signed, and then I don't have it anymore. I don't really know where it went through the years, but it was I don't know, a very brief. That was it right there at the top. Andrew's kind of scrolling.
Oh yeah. So let's see, Nomad and the costume were created. Yeah. It was like Steve Englehart and Sal.
No, that was different. This was this one. Nomad #1, 1992. Oh my gosh. But the cover had a Bucky like Polaroid picture of him like as a baby or something. So like he was always going to be Nomad was the storyline. And it was kind of a gritty little early 90s comic.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's funny to see that character as like this side identity that people could take to be a hero. They're like, oh, we don't know where to put you. You're going to be Nomad. And everyone's had a little chance in it. But yeah, this is now Ian Rogers. He kind of looks to me like he's in his early 20s.
Oh, yeah. Like that. So, yep. But he has super strength.
Yeah, he's something. He's something else.
Remember the 90s? Yeah, we remember the 90s.
This one in this Sam Wilson Nomad is Ian Rogers, and he is quite powerful, but he's also not very caring.
No, I think he is more. He is still a good guy. He still has moral values
because he was raised by Steve Rogers,
right? But he also is willing to make those tough decisions.
Yeah, he wants to get it done.
Yeah. So yeah, this first arc with Fear Him was okay. Scarecrow was kind of weak as a villain. It was good to like know. Oh, I do think this was another redeeming factor of this story. Before I diss it too hard, I will say that I think it made Sam Wilson just a human, more humanized him, and tried to figure out like how is he different than Steve Rogers. Kind of grounded him more, make him more he can fail. He can fail. He's still figuring it out. He's still battling with those nerves and anxiety of carrying that weight, that shoulders.
So maybe to us, it wasn't a really big challenge, but maybe to some new readers, it was just like a breathing moment to just say these are the values that he still has.
Exactly, and he's kind of learning the role along the way as we are. So I thought that was kind of something redeeming. Could have been, a little more fleshed out, or maybe the stakes could have been better, but to each his own. And then we get to the story, which I loved, which was when Stuart Eminem came on. Stuart Eminem's art rocks.
Yes, I thought that too.
And we'll get to that. Okay, yeah. Which was in all New Captain America number
1 through 6.
Yeah, 1 through 6. Yes, the next arc. And this was really cool in that we kind of pick up where we start with like Hydra. Hydra's here. All right. Hey, remember, let's get excited about him fighting Hydra again. And we open up to a very cinematic battle of just him like cruising through the jungle and having to go on a search and rescue mission to get a child from the hands of Hydra that was also Inhuman, of course, because we also throw that twist in there. Hey, remember Inhumans? Yeah. And so he has to go on a search and rescue mission. And I also like it in the fact that at the beginning of all these issues is like a flashback to like Sam Wilson's like childhood, being raised by his father in a church, and kind of going back to like how he followed in like his footsteps, learned from him, and kind of where he started from.
Mm-hmm. And Stewart's artwork too, like almost every angle is a non-traditional angle.
Yes.
Like the perspective and stuff is really, really well done. So the pages like overlap each other, like the images, or they're like showing you extreme perspective, or like Sam's like flying. You're flying behind him. Yeah. Like
if you're looking for really like that cinematic action packed story, this is that art.
Yeah. And I thought the story was pretty solid too.
Oh yeah. I rocked. I loved it. Yeah. Cause he goes and he really lives up to that role. Whereas in the last arc, he was really trying to figure out who he was and kind of battling those fear and nerves and everything. This is him confident owning the role of Captain America.
Well,
and so the total flip of it.
It didn't help that Captain America was, in his earbud.
Oh, like that too. Yeah.
Steve Rogers was actually like, hey, did you just fall? Or hey, did you drop the shield? Or like, did you miss? He's like, I didn't miss. And like he threw the shield and he missed. And he was like, I didn't hear a rebound. It's like, all right.
Right.
So it's pretty funny because occasionally he does throw it wonky. He doesn't have that down just right yet.
Yeah.
So and then Batroc comes.
Oh, yes. Batroc or Batroc, the leper.
Yes. Starts fighting, and that just gives this artwork another whole level of like action. Really well done.
Yeah. I also think there is a little callback to I think it's like the Hydra agent was Agent Bob or something like that. Yeah, he's like recognized Agent Bob. And Agent Bob's kind of like a kind of a joke of Hydra character or somebody made up, and that's kind of like an Easter egg to back to that. So I was like, okay, I see you. But yeah, and then like between him and Ian Rogers, they do some espionage. Like he's already infiltrated a bit, so it's kind of cleared the way from him. And yeah, they just start owning it. And then Batroc the leper. He is kind of a silly pair. Like he is almost like MMA fighter in a sense, but he does a lot of kicking. He's known for kicking people.
Yeah, I forget he has like a little tagline. I'll have to look it up. But like it's like he's the world's best.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Right. Yeah, acrobatic. Yeah, that's probably it. And this actually is a good challenge for both these characters, because this is also like one of I don't know. Captain America always beats on him, but he always comes back. He never keeps going away. Yeah, that's turned out to his flesh. But he's still like, okay, you're the new Captain America, and I've been doing this for 30, 40 years. So I'm gonna own up to it. You got nothing out of this experience. So
well, and then like you have
it's a good challenge for
Falcon and then
yeah,
Nomad, and
right.
then they're I don't know if it's like, do they always need two people on this page?
Sure.
They kind of act like they're competing with each other more than they're like sidekicks.
That's true, yeah. Because in contrast to Bucky, young Bucky, and Captain America, where Bucky was kind of just watching what Captain America did and just following on those footsteps. Yeah, Nomad and Sam Wilson are like kind of competing against each other, trying to live up to that legacy.
Right.
So different contrast there, different respect. But yeah, this was super cool. We got to see him, battle Baytrock, and then all of a sudden, dun dun dun, Baron Zemo was behind everything. Of course. And that's something I hope that we continue to bring back in the Captain America movies and things like that. That, you know, Baron Zemo is such a good villain, even though he didn't get like his full costume.
Yeah, which is cool with this hood.
I think we got some glimpses, but they could still do it.
But like even that room that he kind of stumbles into has Baron Zemo and Crossbones and Red Skull.
Yep.
And what's his face over here? Taskmaster, is that right?
Yep, Taskmaster's in there. Yep.
It's cool that they are like
Armadillo.
Everyone's together and they're all really angry at you, you know?
Yeah. And that was a really cool page too, because it's literally Sam Wilson and Nomad battling against like 6 villains, 6 days of the most classic Captain America villains, except the Red Skull, but that's for later. And really great action pages going about, and you really see him just kind of coming to this full, and you're like really believe him, like, okay, he could actually be like legit Captain America, and make some more like credibility to him as well. It's although I will say they use Crossbones in this whole run a lot.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know if that's because they see him as just a fighter, a brawler, and they are kind of leaning into the you know, some of the things that I sort of didn't like about this run is that they were just leaning into the like you said, it feels like a action movie, or it feels like action event, and it's like Sam Wilson had a moment where he could be more of a like a speaking point for some of the I'm sorry, I'm a little under the weather. But what I was trying to say was some of the speaking moments could be used of him, like, what is the anxiety of taking over Captain America? You know, what does it mean to be like the nation's voice, poster child, the nation's voice, and just the look of it. Like, I feel like he should have spent longer, like wow, I'm wearing the outfit now, and they're like, wow, I'm carrying the shield now, and they did kind of launch right into like
kind of rushed it almost.
This is the age old, you know, battle, like now we're gonna wrestle for a while. But I just think there was an opportunity for them to really kind of be more thought provoking, but I think they went the action route, because again, they want to keep it exciting. They don't want people to think now it's going to be this social commentary comic,
right? And actually, if you think about it, like, they kind of do it more in Nick Spencer when he jumps on the book and uses more of that social commentary.
And maybe it's not Rick Remender's thing.
Yeah.
You know,
I think it was a big effort to like even get this far, I think. Much less like, what do we do after that? Maybe he knew Nick Spencer was going to kind of do that, so he wanted to have some fun going from like a really serious arc to like being something more action packed. I do think like having Crossbones there harkens back to Ed Brubaker's run. And when, you know, or at the end of Civil War, when, you know, he is the one that initially, as the world thought at the time, killed Captain America. Spoilers. We all thought he was dead. He was the one that was behind it, him and the Red Skull. So for him to come back and be the guy that was like, I was initially the one that put a nail on that coffin, before like science or weird dimension Z's up and time travel and everything came into play. He was the one that did it, and I think he kind of puts that over Sam's head the whole time.
Yeah, that's true.
So he's willing to go that extra mile and, take somebody out.
And it's funny, they don't really push the whole like you're in over your league kind of thing because
No,
Sam Wilson's been around for so long.
sure.
So it's like these aren't surprises to him.
No,
He
but
actually
it's like
knows
it's that
them.
credibility thing I
Yeah.
think that he struggles with, and just maybe it's imposter syndrome too.
Oh, that's
Some
true.
of that. Yeah.
We could have played on that a little more too.
Right. But still, Zemo is a great villain to have, as like orchestrating the whole thing. Evil as you can get. And actually, I like him better as a character and a villain than Red Skull. Red Skull's he's too extreme from another time period.
Yeah.
Zemo's a little more modernized in how we could think about it. And he's more interesting to follow, personally.
Well, Zemo plays the long game.
Right. And then they kind of harken back to Thunderbolts at some point. It's a whole thing. Yeah. So it's really cool to as they explore, what different perspectives and parts of Sam Wilson's own history of the character we can bring about. And also what can we tie in to break new ground on it. We also get reintroduced to Misty Knight from the Heroes for Hire.
Yes.
Yep.
And I liked Misty Knight. I like that character.
Yeah,
actually.
absolutely. And I was so grateful that we got to see her live action in the Defenders series that they had on Netflix. That was really cool. She showed up in Luke Cage and Iron Fist, and we got some moments in Daredevil, and when they all came together with Defenders. And I really hope they bring her character back. Do it. She is such a reckoning force, and really does a good job to bring not only a slight romantic interest for Sam Wilson,
Yeah.
but also kind of put him in his place sometimes. Hey, come on, you are Captain America right now. You chose to accept this offer. You have it. You have all the potential. There's nobody else that's ready for this role than you. You've trained all your life for this. You can do it.
Super spy, Misty
right?
Knight.
So she kind of helps empower him and to do this, and truly, it's always a delight to see her in the scene. Yeah. So yeah, we kind of go back and forth and through this series, and we get to introduce to Sin, who is Red Skull's daughter. That's a whole nother story. We won't go dive that far.
Everyone has sons and daughters.
Sons and daughters. I think that was eventually, in the late 2000s, everybody had a son and daughter. Everybody's taking on different roles, switching places. And then we get into the plot with the Inhumans. That was a whole another thing when kind of X-Men were off. Different part of the universe, just like we are now. And they wanted to bring Inhumans into a different light, see if they can add some wrinkles to different stories. Instead of using mutants all the time, we can use Inhumans. I actually did see some interesting points when I was doing some research. That is Sam Wilson a mutant? I think they said he wasn't, but it was a good topic to pause and think about.
It was interesting too, just to be does he just have psychic powers?
Yeah.
Was he sort of given these? And it was just one of those, unless we've missed it through the last 50 years.
Yeah, but I did see that.
I
seen that
don't
come up somewhere. I was
if they've ever really explained it.
Right. Yeah. Or maybe they probably did at some point, but
I'm gonna Google that.
Yeah. I was oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I think this team, once Stuart Eminem gets going on and they launch this 6-issue arc, really cool. When we get into the whole vampire thing, the villain that came through, he was weird. So we kind of introduced what happens when you get bit by this vampire. It's not a vampire. And how does
weird. Listen to this. Are you ready?
Okay, yeah, let's break it.
Question is, how did Sam Wilson get powers to talk to birds in the comics?
Okay.
And it says, in the illustrated Marvel world, Wilson has a relatable little sidekick, Redwing.
Yes.
He and Redwing share a telepathic link thanks to some strange mojo pulled by the villain Red Skull.
Ooh, weird.
They got connected.
There's your homework, everyone. Go find that issue. Go read that.
Red Skull's cosmic cube had given them the ability to psychically connect with the avian forms of life.
Oh,
wow.
Right. Because you hear him.
So he can thank Red Skull for that.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll say that sentence, but
he's of all the things you could have used the cosmic cube to give me, you allowed me to talk to a bird.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
All the power.
Well, is that on your bingo card?
Yeah.
Maybe.
All the power in your hand.
Right. You can use that for a trivia question.
Man. All right. Well, now we know.
Yeah. So yeah, he's pushing the limits of what he can do as a character, as a new hero, and feeling with Captain America's shoes, and really seeing where we can take in this character.
I mean, I think what's happening too is that they're trying to introduce other established characters into this arc, and just kind of watching the numbers, because remember, this was not that big of an experiment to say how will Falcon or Sam Wilson do as a comic book character. The experiment was, how will he do as Captain America? And just like this movie coming out, the comics were still risking a little bit to say, hey, this is the new Captain America. So if they have guest appearances by all of Captain America's villains saying, we accept you as our prey. Guest appearance by all the Inhumans at the time, which were really big at the time. They had some good runs. And then guest appearance by Spider-Man. And Spider-Man's like, I accept you as Captain America.
Yeah, it comes on the annual.
Everyone sort of takes this moment to give their blessing and say, we accept you as Captain America. And to the reader, you're like, okay, I get it. Like, he's going to be the new Cap.
Right.
I think even at the time when this came out, people were wondering, how long is this going to be? Like, they felt like it was a little bit of a gimmick, kind of. Like, hey, we sidelined Captain America in Dimension Z. He came back, but he's an old man now. I mean, they had no other way to like stop Captain America from being himself. So they're like, we're going to take away his super serum, take away his age, take away his ability to be an effective leader. And just say, okay, you get it now? He's not going to be Cap.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if he was old, people would be like, you could still be an old Cap.
Right. I mean, comparatively, I guess, between Steve Rogers, how he always looked, and Sam Wilson, I mean, even though in continuity they've been around for, I don't know, 50 years, 60 years, since the late 60s, like Sam Wilson looks like he's maybe in his 40s.
That's true.
At 40s maybe. So it's like, oh, okay, that's called comic real aging,
Yep.
There's a Spider-Man annual miniseries that they kind of tied in with this run where Sam Wilson helps Spider-Man out against this invading force of, like, I want to say, like, Hawk people.
Yes.
Hawk people that were kind of Inhumans, kind of tied into that.
Half-bird people.
Half-birds. And Sam Wilson, actually, this is where I think the writing team wanted to show him as like a leader. See what his leadership capabilities were, because there wasn't like the really time to put the Avengers together and things like that, but they're like, oh, we'll put him with Spider-Man and some other like little Inhumans that are starting, and Medusa, just because she's there. And actually we get some of the best like dialogue out of Spider-Man, kind of just really back and forth banter, really being himself, and how Sam Wilson and another prominent Marvel character kind of get along, because we haven't really seen that yet. So I felt like that was a really cool place to put that in this collection.
And like Ian Rogers just didn't really cut it a little bit. I mean, he was there, but he was mostly working at his own agenda.
Yeah.
Whereas Spider-Man, I think, everyone has Spider-Man giving this sage advice.
Yeah.
People see Spider-Man as the ultimate, like everything bad has ever happened to him.
Right. Yes.
He's always overcome.
Yeah.
So they see him as the ultimate survivor, but also Spider-Man does have that moment of like, hey, I've been where you are. I've been in your shoes. I've done this
He has
before.
that relatability.
Yeah. And he kind of has that talking points that he always gives that
sure.
It's like the king of pep talks.
Yeah, I guess he does. I mean, that kind of harkens back to our last episode when we were talking about like Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil, where he's like, if you don't step, I'm gonna put you down.
Yeah. Yep.
So in this case, he's helping empower Sam. So that's awesome. And he's kind of helping these young Inhuman kids. So it's always nice to see a little Spider-Man helping out and just being an everyday character in the middle of this like really serious run. And then we jump into...
It had your little favorite moment with Spider-Man?
Oh, sure. I can talk about it.
His little Gwen moment?
Yeah, so...
that was after everything was done, right? They were just hanging out.
Yeah, so after this big, epic, like, invasion force kind of wraps up, and all Spider-Man does, as he started at the beginning of the story, was just eat a burrito. on a note, like a skyscraper, looking out at the city, as like Spider-Man casually does. And Medusa, the leader of the Inhumans, has been really struggling without her kingdom, with all these rapid changes that have been happening to her people. And Spider-Man goes, she's kind of down her luck. And she goes, "Oh, you look like someone who really is a breakfast burrito." And it's not time for breakfast. This is New York. It's always time for breakfast.
And he had 2 of them.
Yeah, right. So he wanted to share. And he goes, "Can I tell you about Gwen? Who? I've been thinking about her a lot today. She was the smartest, weirdest girl in the world. Wore lots of headbands and raincoats, but it worked for her. She was great. And she died. She died because of me. I sometimes try to ignore it, but the honest truth is, if I wasn't Spider-Man, Gwen would still be alive. I bring that up because I know a thing or two about guilt. I know what you're feeling. And I want you to know he wasn't right." What? All you want to do is fight. He was wrong about that. How do you know? I know because the other honest truth is that if I wasn't Spider-Man, a lot of people wouldn't be alive today. We are not just our failures as much as they hurt. We learn from them, and then we go out there and do our best to make up for them, even though we never will. We save people. We save as many as we can to make up for the ones we couldn't. And that's all you do. And then they eat their burritos.
Yeah, I mean, that's
and I'm like, damn.
Yeah, it's like Spider-Man's ultimate philosophy.
Right.
It's just,
and I'm like, that was Jeff. Just to credit the dialogue, the writer, Jeff Loveness was the writer on that. And I'm like, wow, this is like some of the best pep talk conversation you've heard from Spider-Man that, I don't know, in the last 10 years or so, before like Ultimate Spider-Man now is out. But
I mean, just
like,
kind of kicking back and being like, I'm going to think about my past a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's exactly his character too, of just, he has to balance that. He's had a lot of tragedy most people don't have, as even
right. And he earned that moment.
Yeah. And he's like, it's true. You know, people have been collateral damage because I'm Spider-Man.
Right.
But
and Captain America could say that. Any of these heroes could say it. So, but for Spider-Man to say that in the middle of this whole Captain America run, I was like,
yeah, right.
Dang. Wow.
Steal that.
Yeah. So that was cool.
And now back to Sam Wilson.
Yeah, now back to Sam Wilson. And we actually get to see one of our returning artists from this podcast. Okay, I'm going to try pronounce this again.
Dun, dun.
Daniel Acuna with Mike Choi. And those two we actually touched on during also our Chip Zdarsky run or spotlight, and with Avengers Twilight. And so that Avengers Twilight just came out last year, but he was kind of one of the artists that helped with this run. And it was really cool to like, oh, hey, I've seen your art before. And he actually really does a great job. Doing different looks, different emotions, adding some real depth to the art that maybe we didn't see in the others, whereas this more like slows it down and breaks into like what the mood is. And
well, there's a lot more dialogue in these.
There's a lot more dialogue.
His art is a little simplified because they layer it with a lot of dialogue.
Right. And this is the mad scientist storyline. And so we come to find out, like, Sam Wilson's really been trying to be a man of the people, be the Captain America of the people, where Steve Rogers' Captain America was a man of his country. So he was more of a symbol in the eyes of the people versus Sam, who wants to be the voice of the people. And so he's trying to like escape. He breaks down a little story and commentary about some of his opinions are not as well received as they could be. And so he's kind of just taking a plane, like a commercial flight to Arizona, because he put out the hotline. The hotline is like where people could text in there or do like video messages and emails, and any way they could do like shout out their problems and see if Sam Wilson could help, or Captain America, as his role entails, could help. He gets all these random messages and he says, all right, this lady out in Arizona, they're having some traffickers, some troubles there. He's just helping his people across the desert, and just make sure they have food and water. And he got kidnapped. This woman hasn't seen her son in a long time. And Captain America, Sam Wilson's like, I feel like I want to do that. And somebody asking, why are you on this flight? If you're Captain America, you can kind of fly, right? I can't fly across the country with these wings. I'm like, okay, you know what? That's a fair point. So him and Red Wing go on this flight, and they eventually get there, find out that there is Hydra and the Serpent Society have been relocating these children and people to his evil scientist lab and doing crazy wild experiments, including making them into like animals, different science projects.
There's always this mad scientist in this white lab coat with this bowl cut,
right?
It's like, that's the classic.
Exactly. And, we always love a good evil scientist, as we know, like Doc Ock and things like that, and see where the story goes. Well, turns out he likes making everyone into animals, including he knocks out Sam Wilson, Captain America, and turns him into the infamous Cap Wolf. Cap Wolf harkens back. So Cap Wolf, just before I go too fast, he's literally Captain America, but he's a werewolf. Cap Wolf. Just like Wolf Cop, just like Werewolf in London, that's Cap Wolf. But he can talk, he still can make mannerisms, still fight.
And he still has his Captain America outfit on, so it's
it just kind of grows and expands with them. Maybe it's unstable monocles. So
gosh, Cap Wolf goes back so long. It's just like almost like a joke in the comics, but I think it's one of those things that people just really love, like Spider-Man's buggy or something.
Oh, sure.
It's just a thing, and if you're going to really lean into all the lore,
all the lore and homage to Captain America and his history, you gotta do Cap Wolf. Everybody loves Cap Wolf.
Of course, Misty Knight starts laughing.
Oh, Cap Wolf is back. Woo!
Oh man.
Yeah, and he's actually like Cap Wolf for like 2 issues.
For like the rest of the run. Yeah. It's like it happens like 60% into this book, he's Cap Wolf, and then after that, he's the whole time.
Right. And that was great to see him. Like, how would he fight? And how does he interact with people? And then he also like fight against other like transformed crocodiles, turtles, bears, you name it, it's all there. And even actually with this artist, as Daniel Kuna is great at showing figures, character designs, and things like that.
Like simple character.
It's exactly. Not super detailed.
Yeah. And
I think the art, the colors really like hindered to that as well.
I really like that when they show characters in the background that they just are like these gesture blobs.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to always all be like totally in focus, I guess.
All right.
And I just like that kind of new way of doing things, of just, you get the idea, you're like, I get it in my head, and then you just keep reading,
Right. You don't have to be Barry Windsor-Smith and do intricate details.
Every tiny
right.
little.
But the moral of this run, besides bringing back Cap Wolf, is that the scientist and the guy Sam Wilson was trying to rescue in the desert, he finds him. But then he gets his genes spliced with Red Wing, a.k.a. Sam Wilson's Falcon.
Dun, dun.
So he has wings, which makes him, dun, 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 the new Falcon.
Because he's like literally
a Falcon.
And it's just... I think, okay, so we take this trade paperback, which collects the new Captain America.
Yeah.
The first thing out of the gate is he's a hero.
Yep.
He's the new Cap. Mm-hmm. And all the heroes are like, you're going to do great things. Then the traditional villains come and they say, we're still going to treat you like we did Cap. So all of everyone who loves these stories,
who's of villains.
Everyone who loved these stories, you're still going to see the villains versus the Cap. Right? You're like, okay, cool. So nothing's changing. And then it starts getting into just like, what other storylines do we have to just put him through for him to like earn his stripes?
Exactly.
And this is one of them where they just kind of
they test him against the new Serpent Society or Super Serpent Solutions, where they try to do like a corporate takeover.
Yes,
I actually like that storyline. I thought it was actually really strong. Besides the zany like Cap Wolf,
the like Carnage guy was kind of weird too.
Yeah, that was part of the evil scientist. Yeah, that was cool. And Diamondback. Hey, she comes back. We love her. Great kind of villain turned hero, anti-hero kind of thing going on. So that was cool and really brought some different dynamics to it. Yeah, there's a new Falcon, and he's green and he has like Falcon eyes and wings.
Yeah. And then it's
just like that. Just casual.
Boom. And
yeah.
It's like, accept this person. Just be this person.
Yeah.
Just needs to be
Yeah.
here.
I think his name's like Juan Reeves.
He kind of reminds me a little bit of Angel, I guess, but that's not just because of the wings thing, but it's just because he's just going to be there.
Right.
And you just wonder, like, how is he going to play into it? Now you went on to volume 2, because this is pretty much like, then it just ends volume 1.
Yep.
Like, okay.
Yep. Exactly. And we get some cool action scenes from Falcon, like, hey, I want to step in this role. Misty Knight being a badass.
Yeah.
And then we get some other like Captain America homages from the past with Demolition Man. That's a whole nother thing.
It is funny that when Sam turns into Cap Wolf, he just like owns it. He's just like,
yeah.
Well, and then all of a sudden his suit's like tailored around his body. He's like eating and licking his plate and eating like lots of meat, and just like now he's just a wolf.
You're right.
And that'll
just fade. It'll just wear off. Yeah.
And then what did he say? My bark, not right now.
Oh, yeah. My bark is worse than my bite.
Yeah, right now. Like, oh my God.
I can see that your eyes rolling from here.
Like, what's going on? And then he still flies. So he's like a flying wolf.
Oh, yeah. The last bit is the last bit of dialogue here is say hello to the new Falcon. Ha! He stole your thing on your bird. Yeah, this is going to end well. So that was, you know what? Overall, this run, I think, really kind of pays homage to obviously Steve Rogers' Captain America
and things he went through, I guess.
And things he went through, and helps establish what the feeling is of Sam Wilson's Captain America as the all new, all different line, and
like able to meet any current threat, because at the time those were the biggest threats at that time.
Exactly.
That scientist that was like Carnage DNA, and I was like,
yeah, it was kind of a wacky time.
Whatever was available,
everything was changing.
Storylines, Sam Wilson was going to meet it, and they just wanted to reassure fans that, hey, we're willing to go to any length and reach into any part of Captain's past, and he's just going to roll. I mean,
it's better than ignoring it.
Yeah.
I rather lean into it and, insert those like random 90s moments of Captain America's like past, and how can we infuse it with today? And those are actually some lighthearted stories instead of being all super serious. Right. Before we get into it. Yeah.
They could have went that direction.
And so those last two stories were with the Cap Wolf storyline, and the one before that with Danielle Kuna's art was Nick Spencer. Nick Spencer takes over, just to lean it up a little bit. Nick Spencer goes into the second collection of the complete collection, volume 2, and he's the sole writer of that whole series. So Rick Remender,
he just took over.
Exactly. Along this like storyline, you see him look to Pleasant Hill, which look that storyline up because that's kind of wild. We start using the Cosmic Cube, which that plays into so many different things. You may know the Cosmic Cube as the Tesseract from the MCU, so there's more prominence and connectivity there. And then we also see this evil Secret Empire storyline take place and start leading up to that, which takes Steve Rogers' Captain America, brings him back from old crusty Captain America to youthful Captain America.
To like not available Captain America.
And then you might see an evil Captain America. I'll let you read more into that. But really at that time, around like 2014 to 2017, 2018, I think they were really struggling with where Captain America is today.
Like,
and how do we make him what is his role?
Yeah.
How do we make him relevant to what we're saying today? And how do we make readers interested in wanting to check out the storyline? And sometimes changing the characters, like who is Captain America? Kind of going back to some of those roots for older readers or people who are just discovering and want to go back.
Because for a long time, they needed Captain America as this patriotic symbol.
Yes.
Like he was more a symbol than his story. And then it turned into, well, we still want him to be like the ultimate survivor. Like we always want to like have him caught in the worst situations and then just somehow pull through.
Right.
And so you're always
the leader,
like,
the symbol.
Yeah,
again.
he's he's the constant, like Captain America should never fall, like that kind of thing.
You should never waver. He's infallible and things like that. Trying to humanize that and say, yes, Captain America can fail. And here's how he would deal with that situation, or going up against the greatest symbol the country ever had.
Yeah.
Like Sam Wilson has to do that. That's nuts. But yeah, overall,
he can fail. He can go to Dimension Z and get his super serum sucked out and aged by 12 years in a blink of an eye.
Right.
Everyone's like, wow.
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
Yeah. That's for Remender. Absolutely. So all in all, what were your thoughts on this one?
I think it's, everything we were just saying. I think it could have been a very serious moment and really like drove home the idea of what Captain America is. But, I think in the long run, they went a different direction. And that was just saying like, look how he can entertain and hold his own. Right. Like,
right.
To me, this is how Captain America can hold his own title.
Yeah.
But
and make it interesting.
The other direction could have been, like I was saying, like the Green Lantern, Green Arrow from the Neil Adams run, where like they did a lot about like, underserviced populations, or just they could have made it like a big social commentary, and like they really could have leaned into that side of it, saying, here is an African American, now he's Captain America. What does that mean, right?
Sure. And that was kind of in the background, but it wasn't super prominent. Yeah. I think you might see that more in volume 2 of the complete collection. So that would be more interesting to dive into and just see where it evolves. For me, I agree similarly, where it was interesting to follow and I want more, because I think it didn't leave me wanting, but it left me wanting to continue to see this kind of full picture.
This is fun enough.
Yes, exactly. And we do see some of these elements play in the new movie with the Serpent Society getting introduced, and seeing, we might get like Winter Soldier or some of those appearances back from the cast. And, I think, we want to see Anthony Mackie and Sam Wilson as a character really hold his own and not have what's that world look like without Steve Rogers and Captain America.
I mean, there has to be a next generation.
It has to be a next generation. And Chris Evans may return at some point.
And there has to be.
It's not going to be any day.
Any passing of the torch, a little bit of these legacy characters.
Absolutely. Otherwise, he's going to be doing it till he's 90.
Yeah. Right.
All right. That wraps up another great review of Bam Pow Comic Hour featuring Sam Wilson's Captain America run. We hope you are able to enjoy the movie and go see it at Captain America Brave New World in theaters. And this is another episode of Bam Pow Comic Hour with your hosts,
Chris Ramos
and Andrew Glonner, signing off.